Excellent. So here we are for another round of wallet talk, I guess.
Yes.
That's what we're going with. That's my story, and we're sticking to it. So, uh, all things crypto wallets. So obviously, we're in this for the good of Bitcoin specifically, and I think crypto in general. If you choose to dabble in other cryptocurrencies, obviously, it's not a bad thing. Just
hmm
there's a lot of good sides, a lot of upsides, and but it is important to keep bad things in mind, right? I mean, when you talk about self-custody, there is no, 1-800 number to call and have somebody, talk to the operator and get you out of this problem that you've inadvertently gotten yourself into. So, you know, uh, on our last session, we talked about we were gloating, we were really happy about the Bitcoin conference and all this good stuff.
Yeah.
We talked about some threats, right? You mentioned the dark skippy threat,
hmm
kind of at the forefront, I think, or kind of a more recent hubbub. And we were thinking it would be really good to cover like some best practices
hmm
on what to do first and foremost, right? When you want to initiate your your cold storage
hmm
journey. So can you kind of recap a little bit about the dark skippy and kind of maybe why it was such a big deal?
Well, yeah, the Dark Skippy was it re-brought up an old attack in a refined way. And the long and short of it is it really reinforced the importance of making sure you have good firmware. Now firmware is just another name for your operating system, right? It's a system that runs. Like in this case, you're looking at this on a Windows, it'd be, Windows. If you're on a phone, it'd be iOS or Android. Well, any device that you're using has its own operating system, and that is basically called the firmware. So with Dark Skippy, it showed that even if you're completely air gapped, all right, and your device never touches the computer, you never connect a cable, everything's broadcast through QR codes over the screen, everything is legit. If your device has compromised firmware, it could still literally share your seed words, which is the key to all your wallet, all your money, over one transaction on the blockchain. So all you have to do is send funds once. Like you could be, receiving, for years and you have, one whole Bitcoin. And then you send someone, 100,000 sats. And that one send will reveal, because your device is compromised internally, will reveal enough information for your funds to be gone. Now that's very scary, and it just reinforces the fact that that's how much damage you can do with bad firmware. And the reason why it's important is this may seem obvious, but for the past several years or even longer, people become sort of lackadaisical, thinking like, you know what? I just got this from Amazon. The box didn't really look protected. You know, it doesn't even matter if there's bad stuff on there because I'm using air gapped, right? I'm making sure it never touches the computer. And you have this false sense of security. Well, there's such sophisticated attacks out there. This one with Dark Skippy, it was demonstrated. So it kind of reinforces the importance of step number one. Like step number one, well, really, step number one is make sure that your device hasn't been tampered with. Well, first is you want to get it directly from the manufacturer, right? You always want to download. Never, never, never buy it secondhand. Don't buy it on Amazon. I don't care if it's a little bit on sale. Buy it directly from the manufacturer website. That's
Definitely
key
not,
number one.
definitely not the flea market, right?
Definitely not the flea market. I don't care how good of a deal you got. Once you get it directly from the manufacturer, then you want to make sure that the box doesn't look tampered with. Now, this could be not really a big deal because depending on who makes it, there may not be any what we call tamper resistance techniques. Like, is the box even sealed? Does
Right.
it just have a simple little sticker? It may not even have a sticker. Now, a sticker isn't foolproof, all right? You can use hair dryers and stuff like that, but different manufacturers take different precautions. CoinKite's like legendary for theirs. They have it like sealed in a waterproof bag with a serial number written on it, and you have to break the seal, open the plastic, and the serial number on the plastic matches the very first thing you see when you turn the cold card on. So now they're
Oh,
taking,
and not only that, but you get an extra copy, like a kind
yeah,
of
you get an extra copy of that thing
like
as
a
well.
double verified kind of
Mhm.
code, right? But you know what? Before we move forward, I
Oh wait,
kind of
I
want,
have one here actually.
yeah,
Oh,
I've got one right here in front of me too. So got
oh,
got
there you go. You got your bag.
this is the bag,
Hmm.
waterproof bag. I guess that's why it's blue. And then, you know, this is the serial code that matches
Hmm.
what's on the bag twice. And so
And what's on the cold card device?
on the cold card device, right?
Mm.
But I want to touch a little bit on that scenario that you kind of presented where you stack your sats, right? You get to having a coin and then you send somebody 100,000 sats, which is comparatively small, right, to your
Hmm.
entire stack. But if you're storing your coin cold and you're just depositing it, depositing
Hmm.
it, depositing it, and you've been doing that for 2 or 3 years, and you were kind of more of a novice, right?
Hmm.
Or didn't fully feel comfortable or understand what it is that you should be doing, if the firmware has been compromised, it will be it, I mean, that's a legitimate attack vector, and
Hmm.
that's why it's important. I think that we wanted to cover that it's important to do it if you're gonna keep a card where you're going to just kind of, air gap and
Hmm.
keep offline. It's important to get all this stuff done correctly, because
Right.
if you start stacking into that wallet and there's any kind of room for doubt, right?
Hmm.
You should consider that a failure of sorts, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And there's also, because this isn't something that we're not familiar with. We have a lot of tech devices. We're used to updating our phones. But speaking of updates, it's important to note that usually when our phone tells us a new update, most people don't do it right away. Now, why? We do it because what if it's buggy, And so a lot of people take that precaution ultra ultra intense with their cold card device for their Bitcoin or crypto, because they're like, well, what I have works, it's solid, so I'm never going to update. That is not really the approach you want to take, because the firmware updates that the manufacturer released, yeah, let's say it released on the first. Maybe you wait a month, to make sure that nothing funny comes out and the manufacturer doesn't release. Oh, you know what? We made a mistake. Now that shouldn't really happen if it's a good company. But don't take because I've talked to a lot of Bitcoiners who are just like, oh, no, 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 I don't ever update my firmware, and they say that like it's a badge of honor. It's like, no, this is a security device. Like, of course, read up on the update, read the update, but if there's security patches fixed, you want to make sure that you get that newest precautions put on your device.
Right. And what, like mentioning the phone, sometimes you get, your text is weird, or the
Hmm.
colors get changed or whatever, right? All these kind of design cues, and sometimes you don't like them, but I'm of the I'm of that kind of group, right? Where
Hmm.
I wait a couple of weeks and I laugh at the people whose phone, kind of started breaking and all that. I'm like, okay, I give it a couple of weeks. Usually, for large kind of companies that have
Hmm.
extensive reach into the consumer market, those bugs will be found out relatively quickly, right? Within
Right, right,
40, within hours, there'll be reports, 24 hours, 48, within a week, it should be resolved, right?
right.
So I think if you do want to wait a little bit, there's nothing wrong, but kind
Hmm.
of it isn't. Put it on your calendar. Do it once a quarter or once a year,
Hmm.
even, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so, it's important to mention that the coins are safe, right?
Hmm.
You do
Hmm.
your update. And so, let's assume that somebody has a wallet that is their principal wallet, or hopefully one of a couple, right? and they do a firmware upgrade, what are some of the kind of potential pitfalls or some of the
Hmm.
issues that might come up if they do a firmware upgrade to a wallet that's been long established?
Well, the first thing is, and any of you that work at a medium to large company, not even a tech company, hopefully you've gone through or had to go through some type of training, the basic procedures of making sure you don't go to a nefarious website, and that's the top one. Like the number one way hackers get to you is by phishing scams, by basically having you go somewhere that you think is real, but it's really not. So if you have a cold card, if you have a Jade, if you have like a BitKey, you want to go to their website. But what if you've never been to their website? Now, granted, remember point number one, you want to order from the manufacturer. So the website should be familiar with you because if you order a Jade, you want to order it from Blockstream. If you order a cold card, you want to order it from CoinKite. But how do you verify that a site is legit? Now there's a lot of things, but we can say the number one is make sure it's a .com universally, it's probably use a .com. Make sure it's not misspelled. And of course, you can open up a new tab and go to Google several places, and just type in the name of the device, and make sure that all the links go to the same website. Because when you download the firmware from a website, you want to make sure you're not at coldcard.co instead of .com, or
And
j.biz.
right. And Cold Card, I think if I'm not, or CoinKite, I guess, is based in Canada, right?
Yep, yep.
And so, there might be a domain out there that has a .ca somewhere out there,
Hmm.
and you think, well, it's fine, and it might be, you don't know, but I go so far as to, when I don't like a domain or I
Hmm.
have doubts about domains, or it's very common for domains to redirect, right? Whether it's
Hmm.
for certain marketing types of purposes, informational, or what have you. The organization decides that they want to use different domains for different purposes, and they all kind of redirect to the main domain.
Hmm.
I'll go so far as to check the who is info on a domain,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and maybe the who is won't be super great because there's tons of
Hmm.
privacy things, but if you want to get really geeky, right, you can get into the terminal and do IP checks and a number
Yep.
of,
Yep.
right. So I wouldn't necessarily say that that's kind of at the top of my list, but yeah, it really is important, especially with some of the kind of secondary wallets, if you will, right?
Hmm.
There's a lot of potential for, like you were saying, the phishing, social engineering, in a lot of ways,
Hmm.
right? And so, all right, so we get to the right site, right domain, right? What I like about some of these companies is that
Hmm.
documentation is really robust. It can be,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Jade has tons of documentation, tons of short, kind of digestible videos, right?
Hmm.
Snippets. What I have found is that some of the info gets a little stale, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, so we get to the site and it's good. What do we do then? I mean, what do you like to do when you kind of get a new wallet, if you will, and first thing you're going to do is upgrade the firmware. You go to the site. What's
Hmm.
next?
Well, you go to the site, download the firmware, and then of course you'll have fairly simple instructions. Most all of them are the same, whether you transfer it to an SD card and put it in the device if you're doing air gapped, or if it's a non-air gap device like the Trezor, it's blurred out. You're going to connect it via USB to the computer and it's going to do the update right over the cable. But an extra thing you can do is you can verify the signature with the PGP keys. So the PGP keys it's just a fancy way of, if you go to a website, and recently this happened with Wasabi Wallet. So Wasabi Wallet is a mixing wallet, and the hackers compromise Wasabi's website. So you were at the official Wasabi website and you were downloading the update, but the update was corrupted. So then you may just throw up your hands like, well, then I give up, what do I do? Well, that's where you can go ultra, where even after you download a file, before you even install it or move it to your device, you could verify that it has a signature from the creator. Now how do you get that creator signature? Well, there's a lot of ways to do that. Like I remember recently when Ocean Mining Pool launched, Luke Dasher Jr., who's a Bitcoin developer, he got on stage, and it was funny because that was the very first thing he did. He literally got on stage and showed a slide of his PGP key, and then he read it out. He's like, okay, I want you to hear my voice. He's like, everyone write it down. Now he's going hardcore, but he's just like, look, here I am. It is me. I'm speaking it on camera. I'm speaking to you in person. You are going to write down this, basically a serial number, so that anything that I publish, that Ocean publishes, you should be able to check it matches this key. So now that, unfortunately, as I saw recently, as I was thinking about maybe doing a demo, it's not for the faint of heart a lot of times.
Right.
Different manufacturers make it easier than others, but the first time you do it, you're going to probably need to walk through a serious tutorial YouTube video. Let us know in the comments if you're interested, and we can do a video where we just walk you through how to do that. But again, it'll vary a little bit with each device that you may use, possibly. For the most part, there's just one way that you do it once you have a piece of software that holds all these keys and how you verify them. But that would be the next ultra step if you really want to go. But if you can't go that far, the least you can do is make sure you're downloading it from the actual website.
Right. Yeah, that's great. So if I'm understanding you correctly, a PGP key is almost like an SSL cert for a site, right? Where it has to get
Yeah.
signed by
Hmm.
an issuer. It
Hmm.
verifies that the content that's being kind of
Hmm.
presented by the browser is
Hmm.
not corrupted in any way,
Hmm.
right? And so in order to verify a PGP key, there is software, right? And that software is manufacturer agnostic. Is that right?
Hmm. Yep.
Okay. What is there, is that a type of software? Is there one vendor, or like how do you verify what software is it that you use to
Yeah,
verify?
there's a whole bunch of different ones. The really popular one on Windows is called Cleopatra, Kleopatra.
Right.
There's different ones for Mac. Actually, I just found this out today. They have this built into the iPhone now. They call it trusted certificates or something, but it's basically just a PGP key, where if there's someone that you're messaging with that's really important and you want to make sure the government's not eavesdropping on your blue bubble iMessages, you can get together in person and actually show each other your keys. And
Okay.
at any point, you can verify that you really are texting someone else. Because there's so many sophisticated ways that someone can spoof you, where you may think you're messaging them. What if someone compromises the phone number, right? And you're
Right.
not even messaging the right person, but you're just messaging a number. Well, they may not have the same key. So these things are built in all around us. We usually just don't see them, whether it's certificates, whether it's, PGP keys. A lot of it's built into emails. This is how you verify that an email is secure. But when you're starting to do it from a website, most people have never verified software before, unless you're big in the open source or on Linux. To most regular people, this will be the first time they've ever even heard of this, and it'll be the first time they ever even do this, and they're doing it for the right reasons, right? They want to make sure that their firmware isn't compromised. And in this case, because Dark Skippy made it apparent, like, you got to make sure you got good firmware, no
Right.
matter what.
So are you aware of any other sites that were compromised besides Wasabi?
No, I mean, not recently, but yeah, I mean, Ledger's site's been compromised, they've been hacked, and they haven't got any false whatever firmware. Jade, hackers got in there and were compromised the public key server in the cloud, so that if you do a certain amount of actions, even their security can be compromised. So, and that's a very high level of security. And so it happens all the time. And that's the thing about security. Security is all about forming good habits. Like, you want to learn good. Security people call it hygiene. You always wash your hands. Okay. Most people sadly didn't start washing their hands till COVID, because they're like, I wash my hands sort of, but then COVID came and everyone's like,
Yeah.
scrubbing it like they're going into surgery, because now it's very apparent, how potentially dangerous a virus could be, right? So it's the same thing with security. We want to form really good hygiene, right? Really good security practices such that when these things do come up, we're not like, oh man, like we don't get screwed, you
Right.
know,
Right.
because I knew this way before I heard of Dark Skippy. But even, you get kind of lackadaisical. Like, do I really need to? My device, I trust it. But it's like when you download firmware, you need to make sure it is extremely trusted because, like I explained earlier, no matter how air gapped you are, you know, you don't want to mess with some of these exploits.
Right. And the cool thing about hygiene, like we learned during COVID, is that it can be changed and it can be
Mhm.
addressed, right? So if you do have wallets out there that you didn't verify the firmware, you haven't upgraded the firmware, that can be done, right? And there's no
Mhm.
need to panic. One of my friends used public Wi-Fi and the IT guy was like, "Oh
Oh my
no,
gosh.
they can read everything." And she freaked out, but so there's no need to panic, but you can get another wallet, you can do all sorts of stuff, right? Whatever works best for you. I think
Well,
it's
hold
like,
on. That brings to another point that I think we skipped over is I said step one is make sure you order the wallet from the manufacturer, but really the step zero, okay? Step zero is are you choosing a good wallet? When it comes to crypto wallets, they are not all the same. Like wallets have to be, first of all, you want to make sure it's open source. And the reason why you want to make sure most of it is open source is so that it can be verified. Now, who's going to verify it? If you have some obscure, there's so many obscure weird wallets you'll find. Don't get your crypto wallet on Temu. It's just like on or Alibaba. You want to make sure it's a mainstream wallet because it needs to have a it needs to have a demographic and audience large enough such that it can be scrutinized because no code developer is going to scrutinize a wallet that no one uses and sucks. So if you're one
and
of those
also
people who,
to be clear, open source does not mean okay.
oh
Okay.
yeah, exactly,
Like,
open source does not be good. It can be open source garbage
right. You
you
can
know
have corrupted code posted
hmm
on GitHub, available for download,
hmm
but if no one's doing code reviews on it, it doesn't help you anyway. So it's important to have that community around it. I think that's one of the reasons that I've turned into a fan of Jade. You're a big fan of Jade. There's other
hmm
ones as well, obviously. And also a side note, good wallet does not equal expensive wallet, right?
correct,
And
correct.
so you can do lots of very simple kind of ways. You don't even need to buy a wallet from someone,
hmm
right? And
hmm
so very affordable solutions, right? So uh let's assume you've got a good wallet, right?
hmm
Firmware upgrade,
hmm
potentially, initial firmware upgrade, potentially second upgrade. As far as best practices go, I mean, I saw like a little video of somebody, like there were some thieves hauling off somebody's safe,
oh
right?
yeah, I saw that too.
They're like, your wallet is on your desk, your keys are in the safe. This
hmm
is a bad situation, right? So
well, exactly, because you don't want, and well, if we'll put aside multi-sig for a second, but even if you just have a single wallet, and of course you need to have your backup, you need to have your seed words. Even then, it's so tempting for us to not write even to not write down our seed words. Like, well, why would I write it down? I'm gonna just type it in my phone in my notepad. Like, no, do not. You never want any part of your seed words and hence your security to touch an internet, you know, device. But then you see people who write down the words because most other manufacturers give you like a little card or something with the little words and you can write it down.
yeah,
There
there's
you go.
yeah, this one right here.
Yeah,
So
like that one. So I've seen a lot of people do that but then they take a picture of it, and I'm just like, no, you don't want to do that either, so that's step zero when you write down your seed words. But in reference to the safe, you don't want to even have your backup or possibly really even your device anywhere really near your home. Now, this is where you kind of get into larger topics like, well, you know, if my wallet is really up the 2 miles up the road at the bank and it's in the safe deposit box, that's not really convenient, right? Because then every time you want to send funds, you before you just did it right away. Now you have to drive to the bank. You got to go, to the safe deposit box. You got to wait for someone. You got to use your key. It's a whole ordeal. It's probably going to take you an hour. So there's always a cost. The cost is going to be a time, but that's not necessarily a negative. Obviously the huge positive is it takes you more time. One is, what if you're doing something impulsive? A lot of times the way scammers trick you is they have you feel a sense of urgency that's not really real, and you get all hyped up and you get scared and then you make a mistake.
Right.
Well, automatically having your device in another location will minimize that, and it's also going to help against someone breaking in. Someone knows you have crypto, and of course we need to be careful who we share that information with, because I know it's so tempting to talk to everyone about Bitcoin. But when you're talking to everyone about, did you get some more Solana? I bought some more Solana. Now everyone knows you got a whole big bag of Solana. And it may not be very hard for someone to figure out where you live. Well, the least you can do is make sure that someone just can't drag off your device. So whether it's your device, definitely your backup. Don't have your backup in the same location as your device. Go have it buried out somewhere else, put in some other whole separate location. Because God forbid, I didn't tell you this, Benny. Just 2 days ago, no, it was on Sunday. That's 2 days ago. Okay.
Yeah.
A
Mhm.
house burned down. It's 2 streets over. It was crazy, the smoke. And I go to drive into my neighborhood, and I can actually show you a video later. And all these cars are in my neighborhood. I'm like, what is all this traffic? Because everyone's like gawking, because you can see it anywhere in town, the thick black smoke. The whole house just gone. I guess the owner, he ended up dying. It was just an older couple. And he went to the hospital. He was in serious condition. He died. The wife survived and the dog survived. But the house is completely just gone, right?
Wow.
It is just melted up. And again, this is the real deal. And if your backup on paper and your hardware device are in that house, then your funds are gone forever, which is why you never, yes, if you had it on a metal seed plate in the safe, it may have survived the fire. But then again, you don't want people breaking in and stealing your safe. It's just like
Right.
you don't ever want to make your home or one location a target.
Right. And by the way, I haven't shared this with you, but I started my own little kind of seed stamping adventure. So
Ah.
I got some dies, and I'm trying out one of the thinner gauges. Unfortunately, I found out at Home Depot they sell like little scrap pieces of steel, and
Oh,
so
really?
yeah, so it's for testing purposes. I'm gonna,
Mhm.
kind of do some stuff, but
I've never
it,
stamped. I've only engraved. See, I got the little $15 engraver,
oh yeah,
because
yeah.
I just find it fun to engrave, and you can engrave it really deep and it passes all of Jameson Lopp's tests and all that. Now stamping's cooler, I gotta admit, but I haven't done it.
I know it gave me an excuse to bust out the hammer and anvil or kind of whatever the clamp
Yeah,
is, right? And
get your
so
whole little setup.
yeah, and it was funny because I got to like number 11, right? I'm punching the numbers, and I punch the first one, and I see that it's like sideways because
Hmm.
I didn't see it correctly, and so 11 is like sideways one and upright one.
Hmm. That's
So
good.
yeah, it was adventures in seed stamping. So but you know what? Before we kind of got to seeds, as far as very first steps, firmware, verification of firmware, location is keeping that location separate, and
Hmm.
consequently seeds. Is there anything that kind of, as far as like when you first get it, you feel like maybe all the way up through like verification of the firmware? Is there once that's installed, is that like a good complete first step?
Well, hold on, back up because you did make a you made a good observation because we talked about how it's important to keep, you know, your home, and the fact that you have it because you don't want to make yourself a target. And a lot of people say this, and this is a good practice, especially if you're very security conscious, is don't have it shipped to your home, because the first thing you do, right, when you have something shipped to you is it's your name and address, and so then obviously the manufacturer knows where you live, but that information could get grabbed from any other types of sources, So whether you get a PO box, there's some services, I forgot the website, but there's some services that's all they do is this. You can do just like a membership and they'll just generate for you a random like PO box, right? Or some address and it'll get routed to that address and then they will reroute it, back to you.
Mm.
Or if you can do something in cash at your local UPS store. Because again, a lot of the PO boxes want your ID and all that. So it starts to get kind of tricky with the level of KYC, and you don't necessarily want to do it at your friend's house because then your friend could be the target, But that's definitely something that you may want to consider, because then you keep it a lot more private because now there's no record of the fact that you received a cold card or a jade or a treasure, or a ledger or whatever at your house. So I
Right.
thought
And
I'd bring that up.
no, that's a really good point. And that's those two things is the manufacturer verifying that the manufacturer is who you're getting it from and the
Mm,
address situation is why I got a couple at the
hmm
conference, right? You
hmm
go, you pay in fiat, you get your well, I paid you in fiat, right? And you
And I
got the
paid in
Bitcoin,
Bitcoin.
you got the Bitcoin discount. So but I never touched them, right? I mean,
Yes, conferences are the best. Like if or if there's an authorized reseller, depending on who it is. But you got to be careful there. I mean, generally speaking, it's trade shows, or maybe if there's a certain like at Bitcoin Park, in Nashville, they sell official like they're an official CoinKite reseller, and I'm
really,
sure, yeah. So you can buy CoinKites, cold cards, you can buy Sats cards, you can buy tap signers, all right there at the park, which is
that's so
really
cool.
cool, especially for
Yeah,
people that, then you don't have to worry about anything. No PO box or nothing. You just get it right there.
right, right. The other thing too is with so many data breaches, they happen
Yeah.
all the time, right? Like it doesn't have to be the manufacturer or even UPS that gets your address, right? If there's
Mhm.
a substantial enough data breach, or if some hackers decide, you know what, we're going to go after this sliver of people that
Mhm.
used XYZ service or whatever, or just whatever, whether it's the address service, maybe it's a packaging service,
Mhm.
some sort of third party, like people can kind of triangulate your identity, right, and
Yep. Yep.
verify who you are. And so that's those services are good, but I'm a little too too cautious sometimes when it comes
Yeah.
to my security. I mean, it's not just money, right? And it's the aspect of the custody is that it's falling all on us as
Mhm.
individuals to
Mhm.
manage all those aspects that we typically kind of entrust to someone else. And so
Right.
that it's more reason to do it. And so
But the
um
key with the firmware again is it's all just about verifying. You never want to stop like using that word in your vocabulary, like you just received a box. Verify, did this really come from Amazon? Does it look like an Amazon box? Does it have the classic Amazon tape? Okay, it came from Amazon. Now granted, you shouldn't be ordering it from Amazon, but you kind of get the drift of what I say. At every step during the process, you want to verify. You want to verify.
yeah,
Even your backups. As soon as you make your backup, the first thing you should do, and this is later, but put a couple dollars on it, wipe it, and reload it with the seed phrases. Verify, right? Verify that you wrote it down right, that you know how to do it. Every step along the way, verify is always the common theme. Now right now we're talking about very first what you want to do and dark skippy and different potential attacks, but verify is always the common theme.
right. don't trust, verify, right?
Verify.
Which is basically what happens on the blockchain, where
Hmm.
verification, you send some Bitcoin and none of the nodes trust, right? They have to
Hmm.
verify, 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 verify. And so that's really important. But you did bring up a really good point, and I do kind of want to, I think, cover this in this. I think that first step, firmware verification, reinstallation, the wiping, right?
Yes.
Wiping and reestablishing the wallet. I think,
Yes.
and I was talking to one of my friends here after the conference, and he said, "Oh man, I've never wiped my wallet,"
Yep.
and it's something that's a little nerve-wracking, but
Yeah.
it's really important. That came up a number of times during the conference where people
Yeah.
said, make it muscle memory, make
Yep.
it so that it's not anything uh out of the ordinary for you to say, I'm gonna wipe it, just like you would change a pin or a password or
Yep.
whatever. Wipe it, make it a habit. Can
Yep.
you touch a little bit on, I think this concept of wiping your wallet and reestablishing it
Hmm.
is a little, it kind of freaks people out a little bit and maybe a little daunting, and kind of saying, it's a kind of a psychologically, it's a bit of a hump to get
Hmm.
past, right?
No, it definitely is. And considering what you're doing, there's no there's no higher, you know, there's no higher goal that you can really have. You want to make sure you understand just in general how to recover your funds, because something will happen to your device, whether a kid gets a hold of it, it breaks or whatever. Like these are just electronic devices, you know. Do you understand what to do in case of an emergency? And if anything, again, because that's how you end up getting exploited, is in times of stress, and you're like, oh shoot, oh my gosh, like I always tell people, you want to be able to wipe and restore your wallet such that your pulse does not, go up.
Right.
I wipe my cold card all the time. I wipe my ledger all the time. I don't even like skip a heartbeat, because I understand fully what I'm doing, and I know I have my backups and I have my seed words memorized, among other things. So I can reconstitute everything just by memory, Um, and I have full faith that I know how to do it with every single device, because they're all just a little bit different. You want to get fully comfortable with your device, especially if you plan on, there's a whole separate topic, but when you get to inheritance and passing things on, you need to be able to explain it to someone. You need to be able to write some instructions, for your family. But for you yourself, you want to make sure you truly understand things.
Yeah, I think for me that it's a very logical kind of cycle, like a first step cycle, if you
Hmm.
will, right? Where okay, manufacturer, right? Verify the firmware upgrades, right? Get your seeds down
Hmm.
correctly. Get like you said, a couple bucks on there. Get $5 on
Yep.
there just so that you have at least some skin in the game, I guess,
Yep.
right? Even if it is just $5, and then wipe it. When
Yep.
you do that and you do it and you do it and you do it, I was honestly really surprised at how much of an emphasis there was on there on the conference by
Yep.
people who are, you know, very experienced. And they
Yep.
said, this is something that you should do as part of your hygiene, as
Yep.
part of your kind of just almost kind of just regular maintenance of your custody, right? And
Yep.
so,
And also send and receive. Like so many people can receive, but they don't know how to send, or they really get stressed out. Like, okay, I want to make sure I do this right, because there could be multiple steps. Like you could receive $5, wipe it, put it back, send $1 to a friend, send $1 to another friend, or again, it doesn't have to be a friend. You can send it to yourself, you go
mhm,
through the same exact steps sending money to your own self. You just generate a new address for yourself and you send yourself some money, but you want to make sure you know what you're doing, what buttons to press, so that way you don't freak out and get tricked or anything like that.
right. Yeah, comfort, right? Build that
Comfort.
comfort level. And it's funny, one of the themes from the conference was that I noticed was that there's a lot of places where Bitcoin transactions are daily occurrence, right? You
Hmm.
get, you
Hmm.
send, you get, you send. And here in the US, it's always hodl, 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 right? And
Yep.
so it's very uncommon to send Bitcoin just for funsies almost, right?
Hmm.
But like in the Crypto Academy, it was even Pomp said, put $100 aside and
Hmm.
send, receive, delete, restore,
Yep.
wipe, whatever. So you're gonna build that comfort and that confidence in yourself. And not only that, but imagine you want to send something to somebody and you're the Bitcoin guy or
Yep.
gal, right? And then you screw it up, it's gonna
Yep.
make you look really bad, and all of us really bad, consequently, right? And so,
Which is why, again, even once you master that, then that's when you start with, your monthly reminder. I don't know what it is, the first of the month. You set aside the first Saturday of each month, you're going to set aside an hour to do the whole thing again. And of course, it's only going to be an hour at first. Before you know it, each month it's going to eventually, it's going to be down to 10 minutes,
right.
and then you could do it less than that. Okay, maybe I don't need to do it once a month. Every 6 months, you have a health check, make sure that you know what you're doing, that nothing is scary to you, because all that does is give you more peace of mind.
Hmm.
Gives you peace of mind, and that you never want to become too confident, because we all know our memories, over time. I can't tell you how many times it's like, I'll never forget this password. Well, enough years go by, and you don't use it, and then eventually you forget it.
Yeah. It's funny. I don't know if I mentioned this to you last time, but when I had to use Cash App at the conference at one
Oh
point
yeah, yeah.
to acquire some Bitcoin, and I said, it asked me for my PIN, and so I'm there answering, and I'm like,
Mhm.
this is the only PIN it could be, right? The only PIN it could be, and
It was
then I
just
get
4 digits. This is four.
it's just 4 digits, right? And it's like this is my disposable pin, right? The one that I use for half, and then so I use the one little
Mhm.
variation. I get home, and then like the next work day, I sit down, and right there, I'm actually looking at it right now. It says
Mhm.
Cash App pin, and it was basically the same pin times two. That's
Oh
that was
wow.
my new pin, and I had to then KYC myself,
Mhm.
all this stuff while at the conference. But it's super
Well, hold
easy.
on, but you bring up another huge important topic, is part of the burden of self custody is that we have to manage it, right? And one of the things we suck at universally is passwords, right? Weak passwords, strong passwords. And that's one of the, every device you get, you're going to have a pin. All right. At the minimum, if you're lucky, it'll be advanced enough where your pin will include, it has a keyboard and you can like type a really hard password. Pin is just numeric. But the number one mistake I think people make is they use the pin they're familiar with, because
Right.
all of us have pins. Not all of us, maybe you're on a swipe, but even your swipe is doing a pin, but it's doing it in a pattern. Um, that's what you don't want to use, because that's usually the easiest way uh, for someone to social engineer you. I know most of my friends' pins because I see them type it all the time. I know my wives and my kids, and it's not a big deal. It's not very hard to glean someone's phone and get their pin. And then if you get their device and it's like, oh, that was easy, don't even do a permutation of it. Create a brand new secure pin. Now, as soon as you do that, then you have the issue that all of us know about that you just mentioned, is I'm gonna forget it. Like,
Right.
all of us know that the burden of passwords. I reset passwords all the time, for stuff, generally stuff I don't really care about, because I don't use those passwords very often. But that's where you have to, again, good hygiene, form good habits. When you create a brand new pin, you need to have daily reminders, maybe the first week, 3 times a day or more, and then eventually it's once a day, and then eventually once a week. I don't think you should ever go more than once a week with any type of PIN or password. I have a lot of highly secure things that I have a reminder that goes off a certain day each week. And the reminder just says, remember, this password. And I literally just close my eyes and go over it in my brain. Okay, that's easy. But I do that every week because I want to keep it fresh. Or you could be like, oh, I'm going to log into my device. Why? Because my reminder went off. I'm just going to log in because what do you do when you log in? You type in your PIN, you get comfortable. Okay. Because if you never, ever, ever, ever once in a blue moon, which some hodlers are all about, like, I don't even need a device. I'm just receiving forever and ever. Amen. It's like, well, okay, well, you do need to eventually you're going to send, or you're going to want to send, I guess then you could put in your seed phrase fresh, which you could do. You could just wipe the thing. And if all you do is receive and you never send, when you do want to send, then you do the whole process that you learn when you wipe it, like it's brand new. How do I type in the words? Because if you're not familiar with the seed words and how to type them in, and you get some words wrong, then you're going to have a hard time restoring your wallet.
That's a really good point. That's a really, really good point. And that's, I think one of the things I'm realizing is that there's a number of, you can do the strategy that works best for you, right? I mean, if that works for you, that's fine. You can receive, and have it wiped the whole time,
Mm-hmm.
and then reestablish it when the time comes to send. But I one of the things you hear in the news pretty often in the crypto world is, oh well, the whales are, you know getting out of the exchanges, or
Mm-hmm.
transferring to exchanges or whatever, and we're talking, $7 million, right?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
tens
Hundreds
of
of
mil
millions.
hundreds of millions, right? Like these people, and granted, a lot of them are probably institutions or maybe like family
Mm-hmm.
offices where
Mm-hmm.
you would think they have some sort of like multi-sig kind of situation or what have you, but it could be individuals, right? They're very,
Mm-hmm.
very much so. And so, if these people or organizations are transferring tens of millions of dollars using the same methods, basic technology that all of us have access to, people like us should feel very comfortable sending 1 or 200 bucks, right? Like that's a
Correct.
that's a
Exactly.
no-brainer. Like it's the minimum kind of responsibility that we have to ourselves to
Mm-hmm.
get that comfort level up, and and help us spread the word, I suppose, right? It's just that comfort
Mm-hmm.
level will make it easier on our future selves.
Same thing with an exchange too, like if one day you're going to sell some, you should probably know how to do that. Find an exchange, whether it's Coinbase or Kraken or Binance or whatever. And again, same thing, send over $5, and then figure out, do you know how to send it to your exchange? And do you know how to convert it?
Mhm.
Do you know how to get it deposited in your account? Like, these things, once you do it, especially with someone like Coinbase or Kraken, are super easy, like, oh, boom, that's easy. You could send $10 over to Coinbase right now, and within one block, so within 10 minutes, it'll get confirmed. It'll be in your account. Most exchanges for smaller amounts, you can do instant, where you can do instant withdrawal. You pay like whatever, less than $1, and boom, it's in your bank account. Now you're like, oh, that wasn't too bad. And so, whatever avenue comes up, whether, of course, in the future, hopefully we never have to sell our Bitcoin. We can just, take out really low, percentage loans against it or whatever. Regardless, when all these new technologies come out, what's the first thing you're going to do? Try it.
Right.
Try it with a little bit of funds.
Mhm.
Test it out. Feel comfortable with it. Know what you're doing, or make sure you have access to someone, whether you order white glove service or whatever to do it.
Yeah.
Verify you know what the heck you're doing.
Right. And I logged into my exchange account, I don't know, a few months ago, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
was, right around the time of the peak, right? And it got me to thinking, first of all, it's important to log into that once in a while. And
Mm-hmm.
also email addresses that are typically the username or method of contact uh by a lot of services, right? I mean, they're going to email you if you're doing
Yeah.
something online. Some services, I know that, well, in specific Gmail, like if you don't use that email address or access that inbox for, it might be like a year or
Oh
18
yeah.
months or something like that, then it goes it goes kaput,
Yeah. It
and
starts to shut down.
it starts to shut down. And what if you've been holding for 3 years, you try to log
Hmm.
in, and they send you an email to an address that all of a sudden does not exist?
Right.
That's a nightmare scenario. And I can tell you by just working at a tech company, and I'm sure you're familiar with that kind of security loop when it comes to
Hmm.
email stuff, is that just log in, use it once in a while, check it,
Hmm.
5, 10 minutes, maybe send yourself something or whatever. If it's an email address that you only use for kind of one very specific aspect of your life, maybe like crypto,
Hmm.
include that in your hygiene. Double check that you can access the email perfectly fine, your backup, your recoveries, and all that stuff for your email,
Hmm.
because everything's going to revolve around that. So,
Yeah.
well, listen, I think this has been a great session. I think for a first step life cycle, it would be great. Like you mentioned, I want to tell anybody that's watching this video, if you want to see a demo of us going through kind of the firmware verification process, getting the
Hmm.
the keys and all that good stuff, definitely let us know. And so until next time, stay safe. All right. See ya,
Definitely.
everyone. All right. Bye.
Bye.